let's see, so I work for America, which is a Catholic weekly magazine in New York City. And I just started there in August. I'm in Jesuit formation right now. And I had asked them if I could go down to Fort Meade to cover the Military Commission hearings as a member of the press and to watch it on closed circuit TV, like a few of you in the room here did back in October. But when I sent an email to the Pentagon to request the press pass, they responded with an invitation to go to Cuba for the whole week. And I called them right back and said, you know, I'm not able to do that. I have these other things going on. I just want the information for Fort Meade. And the Army major on the other line actually said, I mean, why would you pass up on this opportunity to go to Guantánamo for the week? It's only a $400 round trip that the magazine will, you know, pay for, and you can go, you know, you'll be in the courtroom and you'll be able to watch the hearings. And I really should go to Guantánamo as long as they're basically asking me to. So I went to the editor-in-chief and he said, you know, this is something that America has covered, we've editorialized on, we're concerned about. It'd be a great thing if you went there for a week. So yeah, the magazine supported this, and I ended up going down with 25. This was kind of a smaller group of reporters because these are just pre-trial hearings. I think when the 9/11 trial finally happens, if it ever does, it will probably receive a lot more publicity and there'll be more organizations covering it. But there are just 25 of us, the wire services, 2 TV channels, Fox News, and a local affiliate in Houston, and then some international reporters too, German, British, and French reporters as well. So I just want to show you some of the things that I saw and to explain a few of the things in greater detail as I run through some of these slides. These are all Pentagon-approved photos because you have to agree to 10 pages of rules before you go, and the rules go into details about what you can shoot photos of and what you can't. Now, they never checked my camera, so I probably could have left with whatever images I wanted, but I wasn't exactly sure how that was going to work. So there were lots of rules. I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But as I go through these slides, what I would ask of you is there's a chance that I'm going to go back, and instead of going back to cover the hearings, I'm going to go back on like an official visit to get a tour of the prison camps. And there would likely be an opportunity to interview at least a few people who work for Joint Task Force Guantánamo, which oversees the prison camps and the courthouse. So there's a chance that I'll go back, but I want to go back with Witness Against Torture in mind. So I'm looking for ideas on, like, if we have this opportunity for somebody from this community to go to this place, what should I be thinking about? Like, who should I talk to? You know, what should I ask? What would be a contribution to this community in some way? Because that's really the only reason why I would want to go, is if it was connected with the work that we're doing here. And then either during the Q&A or, you know, during the rest of today or tomorrow, just catch me and let me know if you have any ideas on whether that would be important or not to have somebody there, what they would like to happen during that week. Okay, so with that, if you could go back one slide. Now, a few people here at least were in pilgrimage. Matt, could you just, I'm kind of curious like how the pilgrimage worked in 2005. Yeah. Would one of you just like go to the map and draw where you landed and where you walked to? Thanks, Amanda.
So we flew through the Dominican Republic, most of us, and we landed in Santiago de Cuba. And then we walked, basically, as far as you could get, past the town of Guantánamo, a little bit, to the Cuban military fence that separates civilian Cuba from the military land, and then the minefield, and then the U.S. things. So we were on the outside of the Cuban civilian side.
Thank you. And the next photo has an image of the, do you have a sense for what side of the base you were on while you were there? So this is like in the southeastern corner of Cuba, and these lines mark basically the dividing line between territory that the U.S. has jurisdiction over and Cuba.
Yeah, so I think what we're looking at, I think this yellow line is probably the Cuban military perimeter, right? And then the interior line is the U.S. military perimeter. So we were up here on this side of the bay, on the Cuban military side. So when we, at night, if we walked up this hill near where we were camping, we would be looking and we would see the lights of the base on here.
That's right, I remember, yeah, from the video that was put together. View of the lights at night. So this is the naval base, and this is the airfield that actually still works. So we flew directly from Andrews Air Force Base outside of DC to Leland Point Field on the naval base, and then we had to jump into a ferry, which took us across the bay to this old airfield. And this airfield has actually been converted into the legal complex where they have the military commission hearings now, and where they used to have the tribunals. This is the main part of the naval base where you can find like a McDonald's, a Subway, a grocery store. Like it's a big naval base that's been there for over 100 years. So there are lots of folks in the Navy who live on this base, and this is their community right here. This is the legal complex, and these are the detention camps on the south side of the base. So it's 4 miles from this airfield to the prison camps, and we had to stay here the whole week, except at night. Some reporters went into town and went to the Irish pub or got some dinner or something. But we weren't allowed to visit prison camps while we were there. They told us because we were there to report on the military commission hearings, we weren't able to do that, but if we wanted to come back, we could arrange that. The next one, oh yeah, so that's the ferry we rode, and then the next like 4 slides will just be images of like the surrounding area as we took the ferry across the bay. Some sense for the land and the water. Obviously, it was a very beautiful place, and it was really hot and humid on the side up there. The heat index was over 100 every day. So as we were approaching then, the other airfield, this is an old airstrip. These are the tents where we stayed, and this is the old airport hangar where the media center is now. And then now the next slide will zoom in on the legal complex. And one more slide. So this is the legal complex. Now, we were told, like, you're not allowed to take photos of the complex, you're not allowed to sketch images of the complex, you can only take photos of fencing and barricades, and then 2 different signs. But Carol Rosenberg, who writes for the Miami Herald and has covered Guantánamo really thoroughly for many years, she said, when you go home, Luke, open up Wikimapia, and you'll see everything, and it will be labeled. So it's really silly. I mean, this shot is so new that this relatively new legal complex is included in it. You can see all the orange barricades. You can see where the chain link barbed wire fence is. This is the airport hangar. These are the tents where we stayed. This is the legal complex. This is the old legal complex, which you're allowed to take photos of. So you'll see that in a moment. So basically, yeah, this is where we were for a whole week. And if we wanted to, we could walk between these 2 places without escorts. Though we were always being watched by that tower. But if we wanted to go to the courtroom, we had to be escorted to this security tent. We had to go through this security tent, and then we could get into the courthouse. These are holding cells for defendants before they come to the courthouse, and these are offices that are part of the legal complex. And I'll have photos of those. Okay, and then lastly, I want to zoom in on the prison camps here. And you can go to, so Camp America is where the staff, where the military personnel who work in the camps stay. And then this is Camp 2, Camp 1. So the camps are labeled in order of when they were built, essentially. And Carol has done a lot of good reporting on the camps. She's been to Guantánamo over 100 times. If you go to miamiherald.com/Guantánamo, you can actually, you can click on prison camps, and then it will give you like a long history of each camp, when it was built, who was there, who's there now. So this is an image of the tents with some of the mountains in the background. Each tent had 6 beds in it where reporters or NGO observers could stay. So like this is the little living area I had while I was there. Yeah, there was fake flowers. Appropriately so. This is inside the airport hangar, so the media rooms are on this side of the hangar through those doors. All the reporters wanted to watch the second presidential debate happen while we were there. The TVs cut their feed right before the debate started, so they ended up pulling a van into the hangar and people listened to it on the radio. We're just kind of hanging out, gathered outside of it. This is inside the media center. So we each had our little spot, and then there were 2 large monitors in front of us where we could watch the hearings. So during the hearings, if we wanted to do live reporting and tweeting, we could sit in the media center and we could watch a live feed of the hearings. That was actually on a 40-second delay, which was showing different images. It's what the folks in Fort Meade would have seen. If we wanted to go to the courtroom, we had to leave everything behind, and we could only bring paper into the courtroom. They would give us a pen, and then we could take notes during the hearing. So for people who have been there like countless times, they just sit and hear and report the whole time. For those of us who are new, I spent most of the week in the courtroom. And that's Carol Rosenberg in the background. So there are 2 different signs that we could take shots of. So when they do like live TV shots from Guantánamo, you will always see this in the background. Camp Justice is the name. I know. It's the name for the legal facility there. It gave me a lot to ponder at the end of the night, and this is like where we should use our imagination. But it was very tempting to like take a Sharpie to the sign. I held that.
Without any 10 pages of rules.
It's a nice shot. And then this is the other
You see that
angle.
sign that says POW/MIA? There was a flag.
Oh yeah. This is the old complex, and this is where this is more of like a security tower now. I'm not sure what the actual building's used for. And so there are a lot. Yeah. So there's a bunker hidden behind here that you're not allowed to have many photos. There's like a tower over here. So if you take this photo, you're supposed to run all of them by Pentagon personnel, and then they say, you have to crop it here and here, and then they watch you do it, and then they watch you delete the photo that you had in your camera. Now, that all seemed to be done on a voluntary basis. So I didn't realize that until I left. Wow, they never checked. But you wouldn't want to publish anything that violated the rules, because you would never go back to Guantánamo. So it raises this whole question about access, which I think so many members of the media must. I'm not a reporter by trade, like I'm an amateur, and this was a new experience for me. But I suppose, people who cover the Pentagon and the military and go to Guantánamo regularly, probably feel this tension a lot. You're basically there on their permission. So if you do anything, that would sort of not ultimately like serve their purpose or serve them well, like they could restrict your access. So you want to play by the rules. So I don't know, reporters probably feel that tension. I've thought a lot about that since I've been home. A legal photo. They said you just can't show ends of fences, but you can show, so like a lot of the photos were cropped down. Let's do the next. So this is the fencing outside of the legal complex that I'm like looking into now. You're not allowed to show any of the buildings within the legal complex. So this is just fencing. I didn't take this photo. The next two photos I did not take because you're not allowed to have a camera, obviously, when you're inside. This is a shot from within the legal complex, which is on the Military Commission's website. These are the 5 holding cells that are right outside of the courtroom, which is right here. And then there's one photo inside of the courtroom, which is the next one. And but we'll go to a sketch so you can. This was the view that I had of the courtroom when I was there. I was in it makes it look as if you're looking down into the courtroom, but that was just a good view in the sketch. You're looking into the courtroom, you're behind soundproof glass, and you're getting the live feed and audio on monitors above you inside the back viewing area. So you can watch things happen live, but you can't hear anything that's going on until it comes through the video feed. So it's a little confusing because the judge will, walk into the courtroom and everybody will stand up, but he hasn't done it on your monitor yet. And then he'll leave, but he's still talking on the monitor, so everybody stays standing. It's kind of it's hard to figure out like what exactly is going on, but you get to sort of observe people interacting with each other. This is one of the family members of 9/11 victims. 9 of the family members. The Pentagon organized a trip for them to come down and watch the hearings. They have to enter a lottery, and different family members are selected for each trip.
Are they actually inside them? They get to go inside beyond?
No, she's also behind the viewing pane like I am.
But the family members are on the other side?
This is the only family member in this image.
Oh, she's the family.
Yeah, so we're all in the back room. Family members are on the right side. The reporters and the NGO observers are on the left side, looking at the courtroom. The defendants all sit on the left side of this is the defense side. The defendants all sit on the left side, and you can see faint images of people. Those are all soldiers who sit along the left wall. There were probably 25 soldiers along the left wall who escort the defendants into the courtroom and then escort them up. What's interesting is I'm pretty sure there wasn't a gun in the courtroom, and the defendants are not they're not handcuffed, they're not shackled in any way. Their feet, or at least during this trial, they weren't. Apparently there are shackle devices underneath these tables that they could have used. So the defendants can move freely while court's in process. And then when it's time to go, like 2 soldiers will walk up to them, the defendant will stand up and they'll walk into that section where the holding cells are. So these are the defense teams, the prosecution team. This is the chief prosecutor, Mark Martins, and Jim Holt, chief judge, and then we'll be closer on the next. So this is one of the defendants talking with his attorneys, and you can see the images of the military police who sit in the courtroom. The sketch artist was on the media team, so she was doing all these sketches from the back room. And this is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed sitting with his defense team. There's a man here who sits next to the judge, and he works for the CIA, and he's an expert in classified information. So he's listening to everything that the attorneys, and if the defendant speaks, what the defendant is saying, and if he thinks something has been said, is classified or might be classified, he hits a button, and this hockey light or something like a hockey light, goes off in the courtroom, and it cuts the video and audio feed to the people watching at Fort Meade or people watching the media center to cover up anything that's said, that he fears, might be sort of classified information, and then once that's finished, the feed will resume. Do you have a question?
Are those sketches supplied by them?
This is somebody who works for the Associated Press as a sketch artist. Did all these sketches.
And is one defendant at a time?
All of them appear in court at the same time. They're welcome to. They don't have to appear. That was one of the things that the judge ruled on. They can refuse to show up if they want. The prosecution and the family members are nervous about that because it's a death penalty trial. They want the defendants in the courtroom every day for fear of the defendants winning on appeal if they later say, well, we didn't know what was going on and we weren't at court. And so the prosecution team is pushing big time for them to have to be in court every day, but they can sign a waiver.
You mean all the people down there have to show up in court on that day?
Good question. Only 5 of the men, these 5 men who are included in this round of hearings have been accused of helping organize or finance the 9/11 attacks. So this is one of the particular prosecutions that's going on. In fact, there are only 2 prosecutions happening right now. And there have only been 6 or 7 convictions in the whole history of the prison. So what I'm actually experiencing here, a courtroom, these are very rare things in terms of what basically every prisoner there, every other prisoner there has experienced, which has not involved any sort of trial in a military court, federal court, or...
Do they have translators?
Yeah, so they had translators who sit next to them. They could wear either an earpiece or they could just sit next to somebody. But when they spoke in court, everyone who spoke in court spoke English.
But even the legal language.
But yeah, there are translators available who speak Arabic as needed. Okay, next slide.
You say, I remember it being something of a to-do about putting Sheikh Mohammed wearing that camouflage vest.
Yeah.
Was that while you were there, that thing?
Yeah, so I think back on the last slide. So, 2 of the quote-unquote smaller issues that they were dealing with was whether the defendants had to appear in court, whether they could waive that, and also what they could wear when they came to court. So they were actually asking permission for him to wear camouflage because his attorney made the argument that he fought against the Soviet Union in the 80s, and he's been a part of a legitimate armed force. So he was trying to send this message. The U.S. government is accusing of him as being an unlawful enemy fighter, an unprivileged belligerent in war. And he was trying to say, no, I'm part of an organized armed resistance, and I want to demonstrate that to the judge and the members of the jury, military panel that will eventually decide his fate. So he fought for that right, the judge granted it, and he showed up the next day in camouflage. This time around, the defendants they cooperated with the proceedings for the most part. When they were arraigned in May, they did not cooperate because this is an unjust trial. This is an unjust setting, and they didn't want to participate. So they often didn't respond to the judge. They disrupted the courtroom in different ways during the course of the week. But that is not at all what happened this time around. However, at one point, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed said he was answering a number of the judge's questions because he wanted to ensure his right to not show up in court in the future. And after he was finished answering those questions, he said, yes, Your Honor, I understand my right, but I want to say that there is no justice in this court. And that was the first statement that any of the defendants made beyond simply yes or no answers. Next slide. What I was impressed by, this is his defense team. When we went to the press conference that night, and first the attorneys make a statement before they take questions, David Nevin, his lead attorney, started out the press conference by saying, "You heard my defendant in court say there is no justice in this court." And he is absolutely right. There is no justice in this court. Like, this entire system was created to get a conviction. Justice is about fair process, not in setting up a process that will result in a certain outcome. So I was impressed that he said, KSM's analysis of what's happening here, the attorneys share that analysis, and the attorneys not only fought with the judge over the little things you could say about what they could wear, whether they had to be there, but they were raising the fundamental constitutional question, arguing that the Constitution should apply to any sort of hearing like this. I thought the defense team was really strong, passionate about what they were doing, and people that I talked to there commented on how the relationship between the defense attorneys and the defendants has really improved, over the course of several months working together. Obviously, there's a lot of, tension in such a relationship. There's a lot of mistrust on the part of the defendants, but people commented to me that it's improved, and they were constantly communicating during the course of the hearings.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
So when I was at court meeting, we were observing, it seemed like each defendant had several attorneys. Most seemed to be some seemed to be in military uniforms, but it looked at each table, there was one that wasn't. And I don't know if maybe the other is he military or
Can you go
not?
back?
Yeah.
Yeah, so each defendant has military defense counsel, but because it's a death penalty trial, they all have to have an attorney who's an expert in capital cases. So all of them have a civilian attorney on the team as well. There was one defendant who only had one attorney, and they were making an argument to have more attorney that week. So yeah, all the defense teams are mixed, civilian and military.
And he's a civilian.
So David Nevin is the civilian. Oh, and I wanted to mention Boutique, who's in the Marines. He spoke yesterday here in D.C. at the National Religious Campaign Against Torture event. And Jason Wright was supposed to speak there, but he ended up having to fly to Guantánamo to have a meeting with KSM, so he couldn't be there. He's an Army captain. So one of the moving, one day I was sitting in the courtroom watching KSM, watch his attorney fight for his human rights, essentially. Al-Qaeda, U.S. military, we're at war with each other, and yet these men they're the advocates, for the defendants. And it's just kind of struck me as, interesting, and not what you would think of, when you would think of maybe an antagonistic relationship, obviously, between the military and somebody like this.
Did the lawyers stay in the same tents that you guys did, and you guys get to socialize a little
They
bit?
must have been somewhere else, because I never saw the lawyers except when
So you never got to talk to them? Because I'd be interested to know how they feel about how they might be seen if they lose this case or win this case with their other military people.
Yeah.
I feel like either way there'd be some antagonism.
Yeah. Well, we do have an opportunity to ask some questions at the press conferences at the end of the day, and then we flew home on the same flight as them, so there's some mixing